Good evening and welcome to the June 18th meeting of the Barrington Planning Board. First order of business is call of members.
Separate. Jesse, you're here.
Present. Fiscal here. Also, town planner Vanessa Price and Josh Bouchard. Next is review and approval of the minutes from June 4. Comments, corrections.
That we accept the minutes as.
Second.
Roll call.
Separate aye.
Suchi, aye. Happy LOI.
Jesse, your aye.
Fiscal aye. Okay, next we have town planner updates.
Good evening, board members. Just a few updates that staff has been working on as part of a trails committee, and actually Joyce is also on the subcommittee. She might be able to explain a little bit more, probably better than me, but we're looking at doing a overall like a master plan trail system and to find out where linkages are missing. So we've had a couple meetings on it now and working with several stakeholders in the community, the Conservation Commission, trails, CELT, building department, snow goers. That's it. Am I missing anything?
Yeah, CELT doesn't formally sit on.
Okay, so it's just, okay. We had talked with one of the members on it who is. So just want to let you guys know about that because that might roll into maybe a potential next master plan chapter. We'll go over that a little bit later for discussion. Any training opportunities, if anybody wants to take the OPD or did not, that's the Office Planning and Development from the state. Those trainings are all online, as well as if you missed the conferences or would like to get a refresher. I can send out that link if anybody's interested in taking those, but they're all on their website. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update, and very active in our department as far as we have some construction projects that recently started and are currently underway. The 49 Winkley Pond, the 6 units. We had a pre-construction meeting recently, as well as and the plans were signed on those by the chair. And then there's a 3-lot subdivision, and that was assigned by the vice chair. So they have been starting work on it, but now that it's has been recorded as a 3-lot subdivision. And then Bending Brook is well underway with their road infrastructure. And that's all I have at the moment, unless anybody has anything for me.
About the one on Route 9 across.
Oh, is it the Thibodeau one?
Right.
So I saw that they did a little bit of earthwork. There hasn't been any movement. I know they came before the planning board before for conceptual about changing modifying their plan slightly. I believe they're planning on submitting the application, but I have not seen one. Yeah, when I drove by there a few weeks ago, it looked a little bit more overgrown, like they haven't been as active. I think that the developer was having well, it's not really an issue, but the costs have just gone up exponentially for asphalt in the roadway. So he was trying to, I think, minimize that a little bit if he could. So that's probably why there hasn't been any other action this time.
I think that's where Josh comes in if they're trying to minimize the road.
Yeah.
I had a question on any update on the Terra 64 to 80 units on Route 9.
Oh, Route 9. So they are starting to build their first building out there.
Okay.
Their framing has gone up. They got their foundations up, and that's pretty much all that I've been told right now.
Because they're also doing Bending Brook, so I thought maybe they were going to.
Yeah, it's the same company,
yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, I saw them. They put up their building, and
How many units in that building?
4.
Any more questions? Anyone?
What's the whole project? The whole project is what? 24 unit building. 80 total units.
Yeah, 80
pending-
total units. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, 80, yeah.
24 buildings.
Yeah,
If they do both phases, because there was 2
They-
phases due to like the DES.
Yeah, 64 they can build, and they have to convince DES of 16. Okay. Item number 5, Class 6 private road application. This is for map 102, lot 84, on the Long Shores Drive, John Hool. Oh, please come forward.
Wherever you feel more comfortable at the table, as the podium, and if you could turn the microphone, the button on it, make sure it turns and have it close to you because it's very tough stuff. There you go. Thank you.
Just give us a brief outline of what you're doing. Just
That,
replacing a house?
yep,
Yep,
building a house, yep.
okay,
On a lot I've owned for like 15, 20 years,
okay.
right next to my own home for my son.
Great.
Very nice of you.
Board have any questions?
Is this the one that did,
Ron,
is this the one where you already did 10%?
Yeah, what I did was road improvement.
Yep.
I had Mark come out, I widened the road 20+ feet all the way out. And over and above that, I have a hammer on there, 85,000 ton machine. And because what we paved the other half of our road, I knew there would never be a hammer down there again. So I paid him to travel that way and take ledge and stuff out of the road that we would never be able to do again because we just put a $50,000 tar here on a bad area. So I wanted to make sure that got done.
And so that area, the tarred road is now where you widened everything?
Nope, actually, that's beyond my property. I didn't have to go down there, but I did because I'm a road agent there. And this machine was there and we'd never get that opportunity again. So I went past my house, probably a half a mile further. And we took, I don't know, 4 or 5 triaxle of granite out of the road because the grader would go by and slam into it and it was a nightmare. And this guy wouldn't be able, you couldn't even put boards on the pavement. It's brand new. And it's so steep that he would rip stuff out and just ruin the road. So I talked to the board last year and I had him do it. So we wouldn't have to travel down there again. And I'm hoping we can get the funds to do when I'm done with the project because he's still there going out because I ran into the ledge in my property like you wouldn't believe. I've been drilling and eco-busting and hammering for 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, I see the exposed ledge, so that's
Oh.
exposed and a lot of it isn't, right?
I'm almost there. Thousands of dollars later in eco-bust.
Wow.
Now, Mark was satisfied, but he's supposed to tell us if it's 10% or not, which I didn't see him do. It's supposed to be documentation of the 10% value. It sounds like the 10%.
All he said is, I am good with what John did. Stated that as the select board's decision whether to accept it or not, but you're right. I mean,
That's a little
more
light.
detail.
It's a little light.
Concurred with the discussion with the building department, according to the road agent on 5/24.
I can shed a little bit light, or if you want me to comment a little bit on
Sure.
it. So, I did talk to the road agent as well as the building department. We work pretty closely together, as you may know. And had said that he had already met and exceeded the 10% by doing these additional roadway improvements previously. So he felt like that the 10% was met. But, I mean, I don't know the monetary value part. You were correct.
The other
but-
thing was, Mark, I don't know, there's a thing in there where you need 20 foot of travel for a fire department and we have that and some.
The policy is 16, 2 and 2, so 20 in total.
Okay, yeah, we have that.
Just would have been nice if Mark had said that.
Yeah.
I think we're kind of looking for that. So, I mean, it sounds like a 10%'s been satisfied, but really Mark is supposed to be our guy that confirmed.
And usually we're seeing it more at the beginning of the process than after it's done, so this is sort of unusual.
I continually maintain the road even before this. I got a machine, I go out and grade and York rake and cut bushes. I'm gonna be doing it in a couple weeks. It's just an ongoing thing for me. I've been doing it for 27 years because we don't have much help on that road. I don't know if you know that or not, but if you drive on it today, you'd be amazed. It's smooth. I graded it for Darren Hatch. I ran the grader 2 weeks ago. It looks great.
Sounds good.
Putting swales and culverts, and we're actually adding 2 more culverts in a couple weeks.
Yep.
You know,
So the
new
road's come a
policy
long ways.
Specifically allows work ahead of time. I think the current policy does.
Right.
So, but
Doesn't matter.
we've allowed that in the past. So,
Yeah, no, it seems reasonable.
yeah.
It's just, it's a little different.
Ron, if you like, I can have Mark verify it and put it in the recommendation that the road agent to verify that it meets the 10%, if that's something that the board would want to consider in their
I
recommendation.
think it's important to have that in the record.
And it's going to the select board, they'll see it too, so
Yeah.
that's good. Is there a motion to recommend the language to be submitted in memo form by the town planner to the select board?
To support this project as, yeah. Second. Did you make a motion?
You can call it that, yes, I did.
Second.
Roll call.
Shepherd, aye.
Suchi, aye. Happy yellow eye.
Tessie, aye.
Alan, aye.
Driscoll, aye. Good luck.
I have one other question.
Sure.
Am I supposed to be here with someone like Chris, or that this is it?
For this, if you're referencing the other application that we received,
I thought he was gonna be here tonight with like plans and,
so that application will be heard at the next meeting because it was just submitted this week for the July meeting. So
Oh,
the
okay.
July meeting will be for the lot line adjustment that was
okay, I'm
submitted.
glad I showed up. I thought he was coming.
Oh, yes, I'm glad you did too. That's why we talked earlier. Thank you.
Vanessa, can this go to select board now, or do we need to wait for the lot line adjustment?
Since it's two different things, it could go forward. Because it'll be about the same time, because the lot line adjustment is the same in the plans there, so it'll be heard at our July 16th
And actually,
meeting.
that doesn't have to go to select board.
No, so I mean, because you can do the work on the road, or,
It's already done.
which he's already done, but, yeah.
I think you get that out of the way.
Yes.
Yeah, so we do things that like concurrently as well, so that way he has a certain time frame before, so that way he can just pull his building permit when he's ready and when that's completed.
Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck. Take care.
Just to clarify before we
Yep.
move on, Mr. Chairman, so the support the application, do you want me to put in the note to verify the 10%
Well,
in the memo to the select board, so they'll see that?
the policy allows, them to do work on their own that has a market value of 10%.
Right.
So to satisfy the policy, we always look for the road agent to confirm that the scope is appropriate and it's 10% or more
Right.
market value.
Okay.
For this one, I feel comfortable knowing that
I do too.
Mark talked to Vanessa in.
It should be,
Building inspector.
it's good to be in writing. It is time before it goes to selectmen.
Okay.
For Mark to opine.
I will have him, I just wanted to verify that too, so I'll have him
That's
put
my
that.
opinion.
Okay, paper trail.
I'm not asking for a waiver, that's knowledge to me.
Well,
A roundabout way.
But we can make it clear.
Yeah.
It's not gonna slow it down.
Just having- We need memo. that's all.
email's good enough.
Next up, we have a private road. Application for map 4 lot 752 Castle Road. Step forward, thanks for coming. 2-bedroom home.
Okay. Yep, it's on. Can you hear me now?
I think so.
So we are the Gallants, Stephen and Joellen. We've lived on Castle Rock since 1989 at 62, and we purchased the property at 52 in 2013, I think it was, 2014, from Elaine Collins. She was going to lose the house, and she was a good neighbor. We just wanted to help her. She ended up passing away, and we had to take the house down. She was a hoarder, so it was in really bad condition, so we took it down. And we didn't do anything with the property. It just waited. So we sold 62, and now we want to build, we're just putting in a single wide mobile home. It's not anything fancy. It's just a little house for us to retire in. So that's what we were looking to do. We found out about thank you to Vanessa, about the road frontage, and we had bought a little piece. It was like 75 feet by 145 feet. That gave us the road frontage that we needed, and we recently, it says in the staff report that we did end up merging that property, so we do have what we need to get everything going. That's pretty much the whole story. We meet all of our setbacks, and like I said, it's just a single wide mobile home, and it'll be with new style, but we can't order it until we have a building permit. So we need one. And I don't know if you have any other questions based on the report. The road is actually, when we came to the road in 89, just have to tell you, it was basically a cow path. It was terrible.
It was a hunting tote road with a bunch
Yeah.
of hunting tents.
But we were really young then, and it was okay because we
Nobody else
could.
maintained the road, and again, just like the last guy, I was 30 years on that road, maintaining it myself, 3 plow trucks into that.
Yeah.
A lot of blood, sweat, and tears in that road.
But now we have a road association,
Right.
and we all pay monthly dues, and it's been upgraded considerably. It's actually a joy to drive on. Steve takes care of some of the interim grading and that still, but we have contractors that we hire every year to take care of all of the plowing, and culverts have been put in, and Dan Ayers had done huge projects on the road. And then 2 houses before us, they've just put in a new house too. So the road's in really good condition now. We're kind of proud of it. Still can't get mail delivery, but it's okay. I don't know why. So that's basically our story on Castle Rock Road. We're just looking to fill up that land again.
Hey, any questions?
So the road is 16.
Oh, yeah, it's
22 actually wide, the majority of the way up until like after Dan Ayers' last post.
there is no turnaround, and I know Rick actually helped us when Elaine passed away and stuff. He's very familiar with what's going on the road, and we don't have a turnaround because there's actually no way to do that. So, but we have maintained it is nice and wide, and I think I don't think
Like I said, we have it graded twice a year by Arthur Hartford out of Lee. Big grader, he comes up and grades it, and then I fill in the middle with the tractor, just to keep it up.
But to be clear, you're asking for a waiver for the 10%, is that? This one I'm a little confused too, Vanessa. You know, it says application is for category 3, option 2, and then it says the road is up to town standards. So, you know, if you improve it to your property, that's option 1. If you prove, town standards up to your property is option 1. And this says option 2, which is the 10%. So, confused by that.
The road agent, again, has no comments.
And the road agent, once again, doesn't tell us if it does meet town standards up to the property. So,
So it's up to the applicant and the building department to fill out the application correctly. At first, they had thought that they met the 10%, and then it went back to say they look at their
for
application.
us, I think what happened, Vanessa, is we thought we were doing a replacement. We didn't
Right.
think we were doing a category 3.
Right.
So our original application was for replacement because we took out a single wide mobile home. We were putting in a single wide mobile home, and that was our understanding of it. We're not board members. So, that's where it changed, was because back in 2014, there weren't any records, I guess, to go back on to make sure it was an exact match for what we were doing. And I don't have any way, I can say, yeah, it was a single wide mobile home, but I don't know it's the exact dimensions. But that's originally how we had started, it was a replacement permit. That's what we thought we had to do. And we were a little surprised when we had to do everything else too, because it seemed
So
simple.
when Jamie gave me the application, the replacement home should be within 2 years. and it was demolished in
2014. Yeah.
So that's when I kicked the application back saying need to provide the additional information. So I guess that, it looks like then that never got corrected.
Well, once again, if it's up to town, if they're asking for a waiver, we're looking for the road agent to say the road doesn't need improvement, it's up to town standards. He has no comment.
So would you like a memo for the select board?
He has already provided his comments for this application. I don't think he will,
Oh,
he has no comments on it. If you see there was an email dated and that was his comment.
Usually when he has an issue, he says something.
Do you think he would say this road meets the town standards?
I don't want to speak for him, I'm not the road agent, but I would believe so.
I mean, generally, if it's up to town standards, we look at some, documentation of that. Absent documentation, confirmation by the road agent. Where we're at.
well, I don't think we should hold it up because he didn't comment when clearly he had the opportunity to comment. If he had something to say, if
I
it's in
agree.
terrible shape, he would have said it. If it's in good shape, you should say that.
What do you, I guess on the waiver, they're asking for a waiver from 10%.
Because the road is up to town standards.
Right.
Proof or confirmation from a road agent case. Otherwise, not. Kind of on the applicant to prove that the road meets the town standards. I don't see anything that does that.
How,
Again, all we're doing is making a recommendation to the selectmen.
Yeah, we're not,
And we could say that, we recommend granting the waiver, but it should be commented from the road agent that it's
yeah,
up to
just add the
town
road
standards,
agent's comments.
just
to,
like the previous one.
The memo that you're gonna send to the board.
But we needed to confirm the value. He didn't.
They won't count it. So we have.
I feel as well, like I said, I put 30 work into that road, a lot of money by myself.
Well, so the 10% is not maintenance, it's gotta be improvements.
Right,
The money's, fire department's gonna have access to the property.
right.
The state will not allow you to get issued a permit unless we follow a process that the town has to put in place. The town has a policy in place, it's 10%. Improvements, not maintenance. Unless the town standard is met up to your property. By
Right.
50 feet beyond.
Well, like,
So-
I mean, again, like Dan Ayers was just issued a permit up the street, so that was way past us. So they issued a permit for that being up to standards at that time.
I'm not sure what we would, I guess if the road agent came out and said X, Y, and Z needs to be done to get your permit, then I could see, okay, yeah, we need to do that, but we don't have a plan. I mean, other than we have the 22 feet, we have a maintenance agreement, we have a road association that we pay into every month. You know what I mean? A lot of,
And again,
to
Dan-
keep the road safe. We've got 18 families up there now. When we went up, there was only 6 of us. So, we make monthly payments to it, and
And again, what he's talking about is making sure the road's up to their standards. Is what the
Right.
problem is. And like I said, to reiterate, is Dan was issued a permit,
right, but
double the road, up the road, twice as much as from where we are. So, I mean, if you issued the permit for that,
He
it's
did.
up to
Yeah.
standards.
Well, he might have paid the 10%.
No, he didn't.
He
He
did
just
not.
put in his work.
Because he
Which is
did
why
the road,
He's
the
the one
whole
that put the
road.
culverts in the road and everything else.
So
Yeah.
he did 10%.
Right.
He did
Correct.
it himself.
Right.
So effectively, he took care of the 10%.
Right. Have you put 10% of the value of your house in over the last couple of years? Many years?
Over the last 30 years, more than that. I put more than the house value into that road.
it's
I
only a
confirmed
single
that.
wide mobile home.
I used to plow that road and I didn't get a dime from anybody because I wanted to get out. I know, I'm sorry.
No.
I put a lot of time into it.
Is there a consensus here?
I'll make a motion to make a recommendation to the selectmen to grant the waiver. And I think maybe
Yeah.
going forward, we need to address the fact that there's no comments
Right, yeah, did this go before the technical review group that we just established?
These are not part of that review.
Maybe they should be. Just my,
Get all
Two
the staff
cents.
there, maybe it's a good time to get the comment.
if you can get them to
You
sit
probably
down,
wouldn't
that's
write it,
often the
wouldn't write it.
problem with these
Um,
groups, but. Okay.
I
well,
will
just
try my
thought.
best. I
Done.
can do whatever. So just to point that out though, that also delays the process for the applicants
Right.
coming in. Because a TRG only meets once
Once a month.
and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
based on deadlines. So let's say they got it in the day after deadline. I'm sorry, they're gonna have to wait
Wait a whole
another.
month.
Give them a
So
form
that's
with
what's a
a
little bit
check
different.
off. Give them a form saying it meets the standards, check the box.
I mean, they could have got a surveyor. Not all on. The applicant has a responsibility to
Right.
prove. They, if the town agent's not, they could get a surveyor to do. So it's not, side of their, not being kept from getting the job done.
So, just in general, for the reason they didn't have a survey for their property is because it's not required as part of the building permit process because they're over an acre.
So I'm just
But I'm
saying,
just saying,
confirming the
but-
road is.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Not the property, the road.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
You know,
Misunderstood you.
Did you make a motion?
I did.
I'm seconding that motion.
I would like to, could I just addendum to ask Mark to just say the road meets town
Yes,
standards?
That's all. That's all we need.
But it sounds like the option they should be choosing is option one.
I would think so.
If the road is up to town
Since they-
standards, then it's option one.
They, so I would amend that in the letter too, to let them
Yeah,
know
option
that
two is
it should be
10%.
option one.
Option one is to approve the road up to town standards up to the property. Road is up to standards of town property.
Can
Roll
we
call?
go on
Yep,
the
Shepherd,
consent
aye.
agenda? for select board?
Sorry, Masucci, aye?
Capello, aye.
Tessie, aye.
Alan, nay.
Driscoll, aye. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
So the
Heard at the next select board meeting, which is in July.
July 8th is the next one.
July 8th. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck.
We appreciate it.
Take care. Agenda here. Site review regulations, site plan review regulations. There was 6, and this is 6A. Draft regulations updates with town engineer to match subdivision regulation procedures. Updated checklists, public hearing, anticipated adoption on July 16th, 2024. Welcome.
Yes, we have Josh here tonight. We can go over like how we've done before. A lot of, there's still needs a lot of work to be done on the site plan review, and staff acknowledges that. At this point, we kind of wanted to put things more in, not in stone, but like to update, to mimic the subdivision regulations for contract administration and that sort of thing. So
Sure.
we can also make note of things that we will look on the future, but we wanted this moving forward, at least to have those items rectified and added into this. So, I guess I'm gonna turn it over to you. If that's okay with you, Josh?
Quick question.
Yes.
Is there any significance to red versus blue?
So blue, I believe, is maybe it's me. So we went back and forth on the corrections. So red is Josh, blue is me.
Oh, okay.
That's a good question. I didn't even think about that.
Reading it, okay.
We're like, why is it two different colors?
One question on page 35.
I think we should try to
Wanna
go
Oh, whatever you want.
through it. If that's the first comment, then we can totally
Oh,
do
sure.
that.
Okay.
I guess we can go.
I just didn't.
I'm gonna say, does anybody have any comments up to page 35? We could do that. But that
Okay, no, I didn't realize he was actually gonna go through all of the 94, 98 pages.
I don't need to go through all of them unless
Okay.
there's questions on them.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to highlight? The biggest change was just trying to get the site plan regulations to coincide and match the subdivision regulations. Because on the subdivision regulations over the past year and a half, we've done basically a complete overhaul and add a lot of new material and that wasn't in there before. in particular, the construction inspection and construction administration part. That was not in the site plan regs, which currently creating some issues with projects because there's some site development projects that are being constructed and it's kind of this gray area of town can enforce construction oversight or not. So this is going to formalize that process and just made some other edits too as I was going through it, just stuff that stood out. It's just to address those, but it does need it. It still needs the major overhaul. Just trying to hit the high points right now.
Before we go to 35, on Roman numeral 6, you asked the question, did the RSA be, kind of say the board should discuss it?
Yeah, that was merged in my comment because the subdivision regs don't have the RSA reference in it, but I didn't know why the site plan regs do. Is it necessary?
What do you think would be better?
I don't think it's necessary.
I think you could reference it instead of putting, I personally think you should still keep it in there, but not its in entirety. So like maybe just reference it versus putting the whole thing in there. Because I think when this was created initially, there wasn't really any guidance on how to do it. So they probably just copied the RSA at that time and just have like built off it. Because I think in general, people are pretty familiar with the process for a site plan from the state statute at this point.
Okay.
But I don't think it hurts to mention it, but not put it in its entirety. But
Yeah,
that's just my opinion.
And I agree with
it's up
that.
to the board to
Like,
decide.
so the RSAs are referenced in the regulations, like under 1.1, I'm looking and it says 674.43, which is one of the RSAs that's verbatim in the text. So that, for example, that's one. We can make sure that the other ones that are in their verbatim are also still referenced in the text.
Okay.
They likely are. And if they're not, then we'll add the reference in. So it's covered.
Did we clarify enough under the design review versus technical review? It looks like that was a comment of yours.
Yes, we were going back and forth about what a design review is and where we should put the technical review. So we popped that section further on. So on page 4, it was the question about design review. Design review is not required necessarily to go to the technical review group because they're just coming to the board to get thoughts and feelings on their project, but it's also notifying abutters. That's what stands it out really from a conceptual, and they should have a little bit more design work done. But it's also just to get comments from the board before they submit a formal application. We don't require it. I know one of our surveyors does that for all his projects, but not required. We put that under, on page 6 is where we address we thought the best part or the best location for it at this point. And it's basically taken from the same verbiage in the subdivision regulations.
No, Vanessa, on 23, you have another thing we're going to ask is the planning board okay?
Is that page 23?
23.
Yeah.
Good. Talk about that a little bit.
So on page 23, there's a comment from
Oh.
Josh saying, is planning board okay with the thresholds on these sections, which relates to 7.2.2 for land tracks. Quite sure
Sorry,
the
what was that?
question for this
I just found what we were talking about.
right here on page, or it's page 23.
We're talking about
Right here.
7.2.2, parentheses 1, 2, 3, and 4, is that?
Yeah, so those
Yeah.
thresholds, they came from the subdivision. So this section was copied from the subdivision section.
Okay.
And so that's the thresholds that were in there. So I just kept them and left it open for discussion. And
Yeah, I
that,
think it's good to keep these. In one of our applications. cited only one of these things, 20,000 feet. Not concerned about disturbing critical areas and so forth, so.
Yeah, yeah, and that applies to erosion sediment
Certain
control.
people, we can make that all capital letter. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm good up to 35, John.
Yeah, I just was, in this, names of subdivision and streets.
Are you referencing 4.8?
4.8.
Okay.
Just about.
Just having the idea of the subdivision mentioned, not site plan streets, I mean, that's fine, or?
The names of the subdivisions, you mean?
Yeah,
Getting those approved too? How would that be a problem, John, if they?
well, it belongs in the subdivision regulations, I guess.
No, I'm just saying, if, say they're close, why do we, mailing addresses, 9/11?
Yeah.
Do site
Yeah.
development projects have
Yes.
name streets?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Not all the time. So I'll back up. Not all the time. For example, the 80 units does because of E911. There's just so much going on there that there's considered private driveways, but they have street names in there. So it's considered a private road in the eyes of E911, but not in the eyes of the town. If that makes sense. But then, for example, like Winkley Pond, where they're doing those 6 units, he's gonna have a mailbox. But I'm not sure that E911 would have a separate road.
You did have a name.
Oh, he did. It was approved. It was approved. No,
It was approved?
Bridle
Okay.
Path. So yeah, so that's a site plan.
Mhm.
And so
Right.
he named his subdivision Bridle Path,
Yeah.
even though it's
Is that
a site plan. But
John, is that your question about, should the subdivision name be controlled as well? Is that your question?
I guess it is, yeah.
I don't care, but.
it could pose.
I was looking things to find.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, it could pose problems from an E911 standpoint.
Right.
But
Just from like.
that uses the address though, not
It
the
does,
subdivision.
but so like, for example, maybe I could give you an example of Meadowbrook.
Okay.
Meadowbrook Circle, they when the application went through, there wasn't a street name gone through that E911 went in, and it was like, whoa, you can't name this Meadowbrook Circle, there's too much Meadowbrook in the
Yeah.
area. So I don't know if that was specifically due to the subdivision name, that sort of thing, but as far as like the street names where it says and streets,
I'm
Right.
totally on board for the streets, I'm just saying, I don't think we care about the subdivision name.
No.
But,
it's up to y'all.
it's up, you know, if you
Okay.
make a case for it, John, I'm.
No,
open.
let's let it go.
Anybody else care?
You want to remove the subdivision text from that? You say the names of streets
Yeah,
should not duplicate?
sometimes when you go into this, you cause more trouble than it's worth, so. Unless you think the planner has a professional opinion.
It's up to the planning board to make that decision and the change. My recommendation would be, as of right now, to possibly keep it, since
Keep it.
we're trying
Well, I will
to
second that motion.
beef up the regulations a bit, and it's to mimic the subdivision regulations where appropriate, but it's up to the board to make the decision.
Yeah, I'm opposed.
Leave it as it is.
Yeah, I'm opposed to it. They get lost trying to find my house. Back in the day when we had Baxter Lane and Baxter Lane Extension,
All right.
my garage was on fire and they got lost. And I lost my garage.
They didn't see the smoke.
Probably did, but they're trying to get there.
Couldn't figure out how to get to the smoke. I got you. Right. All right.
Page 36, you have a comment, Josh, about the underground utilities. talk to us about that.
Yep. So this frequently comes up when we're doing our planning board reviews. There's one applicant in particular that does not like showing underground utilities on their projects. They said for Eversource and Consolidated and such. So it's the underground conduit, transformer pad locations, utility poles, say at the beginning of the street. And they say it's not up to them to determine where it goes, it's up to the utility. In our opinion, they should be showing the plans, they should do that coordination when they put the development package together, not after the fact. That way they'll let the plan show where the underground conduit will be, where the duct bank will be installed, where the transformer pad locations will be, that way if any easements are needed, stuff like that. It's on the approved plans, not done in the as-built, added to the plans as the as-built. So I think that should be strengthened and added in there. So that, and enforced too, instead of just being told you can't do it.
Yep, sounds good.
No, I don't mind it being in there, like Josh's recommendation. I just know from working with Eversource how many times we have a plan that here's what we're gonna do with poles and this, and then when the time comes, that's not what happens at all, because PSNH has their own thoughts and ideas on a much smaller scale than subdivisions and stuff like that, so I might be talking out of tongue a little bit, but that would be my only comment, but I have no problem making it part of
They
the plan.
can submit a work order with Eversource to get that hashed out before construction, like as they're putting the development package together. And then if changes are made during construction, that's typical, you address that in the as-built plan, but at least it's thought out in the design process, not trying to figure it out during construction.
Page 41, I was just looking at the comments. Vanessa's comments and doing the future edit. Is that what you're recommending?
Yeah.
He's recommending. Okay, that works.
I would just leave it as
All of access, yeah.
reserved.
Yeah, 4.9 is reserved. Okay.
That would be my advice. Add more to it in the future. Actually, no, then we're looking at it. General access, that could actually be.
Yeah,
Add
so
more to it.
I think that probably came from the subdivision regs,
Yeah.
is my
Yeah.
guess.
Yes.
It can probably stay as it is and may
Okay.
be just gone through with a future edit. They've gone through in detail. And with all the edits too that we made, we did not do any of the updating the reference numbers, the section numbers, because it's very tedious. We want to make sure you guys are okay with all the changes before we went through and edited all the numbers.
Okay, in that case, I'll wait.
So on the diagram in page 42, it says avoid and preferred, so.
So
is
where are you?
Avoid, page 42, the diagram. So is avoid meaning they can't do it? Or it's just preferred they don't do it?
There now. Yeah, it's the same idea with the kind of subdivision regs, the conservation subdivisions. There's like the preferred alternatives and the don't
Yeah,
do
we
this.
kind of got,
Yeah, but
yeah.
It's the same idea with this.
but that's what it says on the other one. That's what it says elsewhere too. Boyd preferred, same thing. This mimics the,
It's the same, even though that was,
well, I
Please
mean,
avoid it all plus.
Don't do this at all.
Don't do this.
I mean, if there's a compelling reason to do it, you know what I mean? I think it,
Crossbow.
on 81, I don't know if everybody's there yet. Should this be taken out? Not sure if it's applicable to these plans. When we talk about that, can you expand on that a little bit?
Not quite there yet. Are there any comments before 81?
Page 81, you're saying it. Still. But 81.
And there now.
I think it's because it's due to, like some recent projects, for example, you can't really require a bond on a site plan project, but you can ask for a bond on right-of-way utilities, et cetera. So it's kind of like a discussion back and forth, like how should we address that perhaps in the regulations? Because some people, some applicants, not the recent applicant, but other applicants are opposed to give us a hard time to requesting a bond for it. They have mentioned that, well, we can do the offsite improvements, but the town's not set up really to accept that avenue. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, I think I understand what you're saying, but
Yeah,
shouldn't we, I think we're better off requiring it
yes.
than waiving it if
Right.
circumstances.
And this wasn't in here before, so that's, I think, like how, yeah.
Is an issue completely off topic.
As
Offsite,
as we often do.
offsite improvements, now that's something the TIF group should think about. You need something there, a completely different thing.
But
and
I
say,
think
you
that
know,
would only be in that area of that.
well,
Depends.
depends. I'm thinking of Boston, I mean, you don't wanna put in your $4 million condos, you don't wanna have one that they're renting for $500 a month. Well, you go 20 miles away, build 16 units, and that's a wash, I don't know, I'm sure RSA's allows that, but, sorry. I'll
Don't be
shut up.
sorry. Don't be sorry.
It's
Everything's
just something to
legal.
think about,
That'd be difficult to do.
yeah, probably. '86, just the,
Well, before we go to 86, 82,
oh, you got 82?
yeah. The applicant some idea of what inspections will be required.
Yeah, so I added, the site plans are different than subdivisions, where with subdivisions, town has more authority and has us review all the work within the right of way. Site plans are different because the town doesn't own the infrastructure. So trying to give the contractor an idea of what the town wants to have inspected. So in general, it would be any drainage system that was installed, stormwater treatment system. There would be the access road to get into the development, and any fire cisterns, like infrastructure the town itself is interested that affects public health and safety and that kind of thing. We don't care how to build the parking lots and that kind of stuff, but it's those kinds of things the town is interested in, wants to have observed. Because right now, town has no, with the site development project, the town has no leverage to have that stuff inspected during construction.
That include things like, before you enter the road, you have those, the bowls and stuff to get all the mud and crap off the tires. That'd be part of your
Oh,
inspection?
construction entrance?
Yeah,
Yeah, they're required to do that.
required to do.
That's an
DOT,
DOT requirement.
But does DOT enforce it on town roads?
No, but that would be an AOT requirement. Eliminate the AOT permit.
So just talking about parking lots, drainage in the parking lot, which, you know, you're pitching them.
I didn't think about that.
I mean, if all of your drainage for other things was on the right side, and they pitch on the left side.
Yeah, so with the site development projects, the town, like Jamie inspects the building construction, stuff like that, but nobody, I believe, is inspecting the construction of the overall development, ensuring that it's constructed per the approved plans. So I don't know if that's the direction the planning board ultimately wants to go, but I didn't want to just say, take the initiative to do that and want a direction from the planning board. I was more focused on the public health and safety stuff.
Doesn't the stormwater management plan show?
Well, would the drawings on a site plan show things like that? Which way?
Yes,
the
it
road
would.
is pitched?
Yeah, they would need, because they would need to tell the contractor how to build it.
Right. So just looking at the plan should show.
Yeah, there
I
should
know
be
we got
grading,
I
slope
know-
lines, something.
Well, actually, I think the last site plan we looked at, the small indications of where the pitch was.
Yes.
But you're saying have the town have the ability to make sure that's how they're building
Yeah, right now the town doesn't. Town can, the contractor can build the entire project, and unless Jamie was out there and just happened to notice something was off, then
it, if the town would want to do that.
Voting on it, you're gonna vote on this.
I don't know what authority the town has to require that. I don't know if there's an I'm not that familiar with if there's an RSA. that is, stored
Well, but if
something like
it's required by the town, we approve the project, for the town regulations. Absent any RSA against it, what? Okay.
that. Do you include it in the notice of decision?
I think if it's in the regulations, it's not waived. All right.
I believe so. But sometimes the RSAs tell the planning board what they can and can't do.
I think they would do that.
Do we-
Sounds like a,
Is that a Laura?
Somebody more familiar with RSAs than I am.
I think we could put it in there, then if the,
Somebody argues about it.
if somebody, argue about it. I think it's better in there than have somebody argue about it rather than be in there at all.
Rather than ask
Yeah.
permission, you just want to apologize if the.
Well, if the attorney's gonna review these too, right? If the RSA against it,
Right.
she'll take it out.
Okay.
They put it in.
Okay.
More better. Now, same question about material testing, is
I'll
that,
do it here.
Josh?
Give me 1 second, write my notes down.
Same page. Material testing. What material are you talking about, John?
LB gravels, crushed gravels, pavement, all the materials used to build a project. We wouldn't care about loam and stuff like that, but
Looking at the material, I'm unclear exactly what that means.
so the gravels and so the materials using to build the roadway or the drainage infrastructure, make sure that they're actually in conformance with the approved plans.
Yeah, but they can put the right materials in, then say, that's why 8-inch list, and they back it, and they don't do
Yes.
that.
We put material inspection, material testing in there so the material is tested before it's installed to make sure that it does meet the project requirements.
Say, what about the compactor? Right?
Well, there's density testing afterwards, compaction
Okay,
testing.
okay.
Yes. So there's
Okay.
testing material itself before it's installed, then there's compaction testing after it's
Okay.
installed.
But does Jamie have the capacity to do that? That'd be you.
That'd be us.
Oh, okay.
It's actually technically the contractors, the ones that coordinate it. We usually are there to observe it, make sure that, yes, but John Turner Consulting out of Dover, SW Cole out of Dover, they're the ones that frequently do it.
I'm on 98.
Oh, I'm on 86.
You're on 86?
Yeah.
He said
No.
it might flow better in a different section.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that was stuff that Vanessa had copied in, and she dropped it in there, and then I just took it and moved it.
Okay.
So it's already been addressed.
On 97 next. If I want to go
7.
there.
Okay.
Civic cover by technical design review. If so, I take it out. This. What that, Vanessa?
You said 97?
Page 97, yeah. There's 2 comments there, one blue, one red,
6, 8,
pink, whatever.
parentheses 3.
Oh, I think my comment only applies to 1.
We don't send a letter describing the applicant, like for safety review. It is handled TRG for them to say if there's any issues or any safety issues at that time. That's when it should be addressed. So maybe taking it out.
Yeah, I mean, the comment was it is covered by the technical
but-
design group, you take it out.
But the second comment,
I think the second comment still applies. That should probably go someplace else.
yeah.
Or
I think it's valuable to keep it in. I just don't know.
but is our floor drains? Is that a planning?
Oh, that's
board
because it was like
purview?
additional standards. So there's a section for additional standards. And it was just kind of like everything else kind of got, that wasn't addressed somewhere else, plopped there. But if there's a more appropriate place, put it.
Well, you kind of posed the question.
I did.
I don't know the answer, but I'm assuming you two will work it out. Is that where we should leave this?
Yeah, it sounds like one will go away and the other one you two will put where it
Yeah.
belongs.
I think that parentheses number 1 under that can go away, and then we'll keep that second one just where it is right now under additional standards, unless
Well, we should probably
there's a better section to put that under.
maybe under design.
I think we trust you to just.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
Yeah, we'll take
Yep.
care of it.
Like that for you guys to work out.
Okay.
We trust you, whatever you do.
Thank you.
So I paid nothing.
I brought snacks.
I
this
refuse to
time.
believe that represents
Yeah.
our worth.
This is all we get.
I got you some water and nuts today.
All right, and the next page, maybe further review from subdivision regulation, maybe further review, is that, does it need further review? What do you guys think?
What we think?
I'm not there yet.
So there's a waiver procedure in the subdivision regulations. I feel like since we also have waiver regulations for site plans, and it doesn't really mention it anywhere in detail, I guess. I think we should add it in. I don't know about further review. That might be at a future review, but
Okay, well, Blue's you, so.
Yep.
If you say doesn't need further review, I'm
I'm
good.
good with it.
yeah. I think that was more to him, like maybe we need to further review it, but it's just
Okay.
to have him in both spots. And then just to mention on 102, all of the sign definitions were
Stuff's
taken
gone,
care
yeah.
of because they're in our zoning ordinance. If you want to keep them there, we can, well, but,
No,
um,
no, me. Okay.
anybody else have any questions for that? I just wanted to quickly, while you mull it over, if there's a question, we can come back. The site plan application checklist, it's pretty much the same. I know Barbara did a lot of hard work on the old one, about saying what all it is, but it's basically taking the entire section 3 to make sure that an application is complete. So there's some extra things that weren't on the original checklist for like, I think more specifically like improvement plans and that sort of thing, but the applicant should be providing all of this information as it is, since it is in our regulations too. But I felt like to make sure that that is I don't know if I'm making the checklist too long. If you guys feel like it's too long, I can take some of it out. But in our section, in section 3, it kind of talks about what makes an application complete. So no question, maybe further down the line, or there hasn't really been any questions, but
Yeah.
it's just me trying to clean it up from 2016.
I think more guidance for the applicant is better.
Yeah.
Okay.
It gives
To
them
me.
something to think about if they see it. So,
Yeah, it's, the worst thing is it's missing and then they get caught by it. down the road.
I didn't have that quite earlier because going off of our improvements in here, but. So I did also advertise this as a public hearing. Not to put that on you, Mr. Chairman, but if you don't mind asking for a public comment, I do see someone online, but just for the
course.
record, just in
I'm
case.
opening public comment.
If there's any questions on the site
Yeah,
plan.
any
regulations.
questions on this proposed subdivision? I'm sorry, site plan.
That's okay.
Update.
We got you.
Do you see anybody waving their hand?
If anybody online would like to review or have any questions or comment on this portion for the site plan review regulations update, please raise your hand and put yourself off mute. Mr. Chairman, I don't see that they would like to make a
Okay,
comment
I
for
will,
this.
this time I will
Thank you.
close public.
For a formal.
So, if you got, I don't know if it's necessary, but if you want to make a motion to accept these changes, and have it ready for adoption. But, I mean, you won't adopt, we'll have another public hearing
Sure.
Yeah.
at the July meeting to adopt these too, so.
Make a motion, we accept these recommendations with the changes we discussed.
Before I second that, I'd like to have our full voting tonight. I probably should have mentioned that earlier.
Especially as there's
And
already
I will
voted twice.
second that motion now that you have been advanced to the
I didn't.
hierarchy of roll call.
Does somebody second it?
Yes.
I did, yes.
Oh, Masucci, aye. Gabrielle, aye.
Tessie, right?
Alan, aye.
Fiscal eye. Okay, Ma'am?
Thank you. Do you want me to go next?
Go ahead, please.
The next part is just going into work session,
Mhm.
for the board, and there's some topics that the chairman had wanted to discuss, and I think some others wanted to discuss, but, the first one is master plan chapter discussion. Since we recently adopted a housing plan, we're on to the next phase of what should the board focus on next. I have two thoughts in there and open, obviously open for suggestion. SRPC mentioned that we should do like an implementation plan with everything. But also I know the board had discussed previously about talking about a recreation or open space plan.
Thanks, Josh. Take care.
And I had reached out to the Conservation Commission as well as the Rec Department
Yeah.
last time we discussed this, which was about 6 months or more ago, and they were open to the idea then. I reached out again. I know the rec plan is kind of, well, not kind of, but in the middle of summer camp, so she can't really, she probably won't present it for the rec board till later in the season, maybe August or September. The Conservation Commission hasn't quite agreed to it yet, but I think that they're on board with having one document. But it might be from other communities where I've worked, not necessarily in the state of New Hampshire. They have had an open space and recreation plan. And I think it does help also applicants to know, like, even though it's mentioned in conservation subdivisions, open lands, or if there's any other recreation opportunities, you would see, like, for me being as a parent, take it away from not my municipality duty, but like I love parks. Like I have a park in my neighborhood. That's why I bought there. Was one of the reasons. But and I know the Barrington lacks that opportunity for its residents. And I feel like if we don't have something in our regulations, or even maybe, and some also might be a plug for zoning change as well, to have some kind of recreation opportunities, like having an applicant on larger scale projects provide some kind of recreation opportunity. Maybe not necessarily playground, but like this also leads kind of into our Trails Commission meeting. Like maybe this is where we find the missing links, or like have some provisions of that maybe you should require, but you shall require part of it to help link up, you know, trails when possible, or other recreational opportunities. That's just coming from my side of it. But like I said, this might be a bigger evolution than what, not necessarily what the board is used to, but obviously like the Conservation Commission, people from the rec board would be on board, as well as I was suggesting a subcommittee, and also the planning board members. But the cost, I had talked with administration, the cost would be borne mostly on the Conservation Commission and rec to split the cost. Don't have an estimate yet from it, because I want to make sure they were on board and like which direction the board or would like to possibly see that way. I know the Conservation Commission, Recreation are looking to me or to y'all for guidance for what the cost should be and what it should look like. Do we want to have SRPC do this chapter, since they do have information when they did our 2019 Natural Resource Plan? They first approached us to redo that as part of a master plan chapter, because they did that for the Conservation Commission. And then I know that the rec has their rec plan that was done by a different consultant, but that's a wealth of knowledge to combine the two. I don't know what the stipulations are from using work or reference material, but I want to bring that up to kind of know what direction you all want me to pursue, or if there's other master plan chapters you want to see done before then. We have our economics chapter. We have a utilities chapter that needs update at some point. But
Well, a lot of the comments we got from our solicited information from the public was more trails, and more recreation opportunities. At the beginning, you mentioned the Trails Committee and suggesting that might be part of the master plan.
but I think maybe potentially, because
Yeah. So could we do that with the open space and trails? Would that be part of that?
I would think so, because it seems the effort that the committee has put in so far. We're looking at doing like a master trail plan and identifying linkages, and so that definitely is going to be a good resource.
If we do go
For
with
this, but-
Stratford planning, one of the things we should look at is 13,000 acres of land in current use. 3,000 of those acres take a 10% recreational discount, pardon me, that allows passive recreation. And I think those might be a key of potentially connecting our actual public lands or SELT lands with the permission of the landowner, even though he's opened it, so people can, without any difficulty, stroll on their property, hunt, fish, snowshoe, and so forth, and bird observation, and just hiking. So I think that would be important. And I think that when there was discussion with the housing portion, their mapping person indicated that they could actually produce a map showing those lots.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it just needs some input from you, from,
Yeah, so I got the current,
Property
yeah,
counts, yeah.
I got the current use. This is a side note, but I was working on that as well. I did receive the current use information from the
Oh.
assessor on Monday.
oh, good.
Because I was gonna have him look at it as part of like maybe working with the trails
Oh,
connectivity.
yeah.
And then our meeting today, there was other information. I don't know if that's what, like GPS of like trails and stuff, trying to make an overall big map. So it might be like two different
Sure.
things to one, maybe showing a current use and that too.
Current use with recreation, just
Maybe.
color the ones that have the recreational discount.
Maybe,
Okay.
yeah.
Sounds good.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Can you make sure your microphone's on? Okay, I want to make that's okay. Okay, thank you.
You can hear me. So in looking at the master plans, it seems like there's a lot of information in there. And essentially what it seems to me is that it's a sort of an analysis of where we are, so current state, a gap analysis. And then it makes recommendations. And I think for each of the chapters, there's recommendations that we really haven't followed through. And I'm actually wondering if it might make sense, because we're going to do work with the select board, to go through and try to start thinking about what a plan might be. The question was raised, should it be part of the implementation plan of a master plan, or do we keep it outside and make it a little bit more flexible? I guess that's the reason why. But I'm wondering actually if for input in this, if the select board should actually go through and really think about what questions they want to ask as part of their planning and thinking about where we want to go. So it may be useful, that we have certain areas that we want to push off and say, well, we don't know enough about this. Let's go find out about that. And so the trails may be one area. And maybe if we were to have the select board actually go through and really think about what do we want to know and how do we figure it out, then that might actually make the master plan chapter a little bit more useful for us, as opposed to being sort of an open-ended question that the Stratford Regional Planning Board sort of gives it. I don't know, is that allowed in the regulations? Is there,
So you're asking for the select board to
Well, I'm saying
review
if
it?
we could direct maybe a little bit what the goal of the master plan is, as opposed to just being a general document, but say, these are the questions we would like to have resolved as part of that master plan discussion.
The select board did, in the past year, say that we wanted to look more at the master plans in guiding, our thoughts on things. So I think that sort of aligns.
Yeah.
Yes,
But
so-
I'm just wondering if you'd use it to tee up the master plan. And so that's sort of it's a prerequisite. You got to go through that. And then that gets officially put into the master planning, if you will.
But if you look at the old vision plan compared to the one we just did, the back part, where you want to implement various things, I think we tripled the amount of comments that was there before. So I think that's an area we should look.
Mm-hmm.
See what the comments we solicited from the citizens, and added that. I just got the impression that the rest of the vision thing was just, all the information was from the last one. There was no updated information. It's verbatim, word for word, until we get to the end.
Yeah.
Which I guess you could call the implementation part of master plan, or a checklist of what we should be doing.
Yeah. It's just where does it live and what's the structure? Right.
Yeah, the master plan is done by the planning board.
Mhm.
So like revisions and that sort of thing. It's not a regulatory document.
Right.
So
Yep.
I don't know if that's what it's a long-term planning tool also for the town too, to like look at, this is what the community says,
Sure,
how do we meet
sure.
those?
But I guess the question is, what's the organization of it? I would think, as I understand, the vision is sort of the master of the master plan, right? It's what everybody looks to. And then all the individual chapters are trying to fit themselves and inform that vision, right? And so that's why I say it's almost a gap analysis, right? So if we are sure we understand what that vision is, and there may be some sort of, analysis of that, not that we're going to change it, but just in really thinking about how we put it into practice, it may be that then you have the master plan in the chapters, but then there's some stability in that. But then if you want to turn it into a working plan, you probably want to take it out of that sort of structure and really allow it to be more free flowing and something that can be used. And so I wouldn't call it, I don't know what you would call it, but a different type of plan.
It sounds like needing a flow sheet where we start with visions and then how those flow and then really get down to.
Yeah,
the
exactly,
specifics.
exactly.
Like, for example, in the housing chapter, it talks about universal design to address needs for people with disabilities and elderly. I have no idea how you could implement that based on what planning does.
And I would say that there's a lot of those issues that cut across all these areas, right? So if you just look, I just mentioned this before, housing, if we could use housing as a tool to help Barrington, so you could use it for police and fire, right? So now we're strengthening police and fire, but it's an approach. And if you just look at housing as housing, it almost, you're looking at the trees and not the forest, right? So how do you actually take a step back and say, okay, workforce housing is important. We've already had something come before us. How do we actually use that in totality? And you almost have to step yourself out of the master housing chapter master plan, because it doesn't really give you any information about that. So the questions would be, what do we need to do to bring that into force? You were talking about density bonuses. That's not even mentioned in the master, the chapter, housing chapter, but maybe we should start to look at that and ask, what do we need to do? What are all the various, I don't even know how this works. If somebody comes up, like they said, they were going to put them up for rent, who's in charge of verifying if they need to, any salary requirements? I don't know if they do that, income, or how this works, but, there's a whole process here that I don't know that we've talked about. If you put it into context of the master plan, so I guess TurboCam may be doing workforce housing. I've heard, I don't know if that's true. I've heard that through the grapevine, but maybe we actually can use this in town property. We can use this for working with a company that might want to locate here and begin to employ people here. We can start using this type of workforce housing as a way to try to encourage that. So if you take it out, if you just look at it from the master plan, what I'm trying to say is if you just look at it from the master plan, it's very, it doesn't give you any information on how to implement it or what to implement or why to implement it. And that's why I reached out to you to say, maybe we need to get somebody in here who has more experience that can tell us. I guess Lebanon uses that housing, workforce housing, as a way to support its town employees. Well, what are the options out there? So it's almost independent of the chapter itself, which just says facts and consider workforce housing.
Well, that document drives changes to the zoning, et cetera.
Mhm.
So that does not, the vision, it doesn't have any regulatory authority, so to speak.
No, I know.
So what it really does is drives changes we want. I think that's where it goes. But I will tell you that we get what vision document says and what we hear on a regular basis. Want affordable housing, but we want our properties to value in our town better. Those things, directions. There's a disconnect there. You can't have your house value increase up in this town faster than other towns around you. How everybody wants single investment and keep your town affordable. People say they want this, but they don't want it in their backyard. So there's always a disconnect between the vision, getting down to the brass tacks, and actually making.
But the people I talk to, it seems like everybody wants to hear, and you hear it all around. People want a way to age in place. They're stuck in their house. They want somewhere to go to in town, but there is nowhere to go to. So people are like, I have to leave the town. right? So there's no way to age in your town if not in place, right? You have people who want their kids to live nearby, but they can't because they can't afford anything. I think that there's a real need, and if we were actually to figure out a way, and I agree, there's threading the needle here, but if we actually look at that and say, well, maybe that's one of the goals that we should do. I'll call it Barrington for Barrington. How do we make Barrington a place that's really supportive of its own residents and make it more easier for them to actually make life choices that keep them here and keep our families around us? I think it would be
Well, the
useful.
aging in place thing, we had that application that came in for the lot, that's the TIF lot now. The density is very important for them in order to make it work. Plus is the issue, of course, Andy was talking about effluent runoff from a facility such so forth.
We killed that
Potentially.
was the,
Right. But I mean, to get it, we'll have to change that. That's
we
what's gonna,
did change that.
right.
But there's affordable housing, there's workforce housing. Workforce housing can be police and fire, right? They're not, it's not affordable, there's no.
Well, a lot of
increase.
people think it's Section 8 housing.
Yeah,
Get that
which,
back. We
you
don't
know,
want
we're not talking
workforce
about
because
here.
that means that. Well, it doesn't,
Right.
of course. Just look at the income level.
The workforce, ours is relatively open, and workforce regulations in RSA are a more cooperative type of, development than any other development. They have to kind of disclose costs and stuff, which they, all of the projects they have to do. So this is a process that we really can get our finger into and drive housing. So I think we have a fair amount of ability to influence. And I think, we can drive that because of that current regulation. Even though it's left up to us. So I think it's hard to define every single thing. Sometimes you just gotta have a broad thing.
You look at the workforce housing we have now, we've got over 600 units of mobile home units, which are a lower entry level for rent and to purchase.
And certainly below 350.
It's interesting because I actually did the calculation because they used 5.34% in the housing chapter. And that sort of sets the stage, 300, what is it, 350,500, whatever it is. If you use today's interest rate of 7, it goes down to 290. If you go up to 4%, we're down to 4% interest, it goes up to 425 or something. So really what's interesting about it is it's a moment, time, and snapshot that we're now all pegged to, although the world around us and interest rates are changing and fluctuating. It's just interesting.
Right. The Fed could change it tomorrow and then the portion
It
of
already
the housing
has, right?
chapter is.
Literally, they're now down 6, something, but when I checked it last week, it was 7. So.
Yep.
But you're really talking about some big picture thinking. Select board.
Yeah, and I don't know where it rests, whether it's here with the select board, really, it's probably a joint.
Well, it's
effort.
interesting. I remember that thing I sent you from 2015. They had this big charrette over it. Christmas Dove, that whole area. They had what? I'd say 100 or 200 units of housing they showed there. They spent the whole couple of days, 2 days things. And it's actually on our planning site. And of course, it never came to fruition. It just sat there on the table and in the ether forever.
Yeah.
In the cloud. But there was thinking way back in 2015 about it. It was a big push for work. They brought the Seacoast Workforce Coalition in to run the program, and that was it. Like many of these meetings we have.
Well, and so Vanessa, you can talk about the issues with, he didn't have enough to do their conservation, didn't have enough. They've had some issues with. Or the
Well, as it's currently constructed, yeah.
depth.
Well, they have to.
Yeah, for their density, they've asked for more density than what was allowed, and
They had to,
they had to
under
give
the regs, had to be
additional-
25%.
yeah, so they gave additional, up to, I think it was 40% of, I don't know if it's considered like open space, but for the town to use.
But I don't think they actually had them.
A lot
have
of
to
the
look back.
desirable areas isn't, you know,
Yeah.
like the little pond and the area around it, they aren't part of the project,
Benson's held on to them.
yeah. So,
Well, getting back to trails.
Or where you want me to go from here, I guess, too, for master plan.
Well, you were talking about recreation and trails and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I would think would be better to be formalized, you know, these recreational trails and stuff, you know, we only hear about them if they're developed, you know, we get told about them. No document that, you know, that we can say, okay, you are in a recreational trail area that requires these things to be addressed. Because we don't have any document that tells us where the trails are. You know, there's nothing.
well, they put the book out. Did you get a copy of the
Right,
book?
but I think that's what this Trails Committee would like to do,
Mhm.
to have better
Like a master
mapping.
plan.
And
Yeah.
be able to say, these are the private ones, these are the public ones, and here's where we want to go. Here's what we
I'm
want to
talking about
connect.
taking that and putting it in the zoning.
Yeah.
Oh.
Where,
And I
you know,
think that committee's not quite ready, but might be able to.
I
make
think
some
that's might be the
recommendations.
future
Yeah,
discussion.
long
with that
term,
on
if we
that.
put that in the zoning and say, okay, you're developing on
Mhm.
a recreational trail area, defined recreational trail area, that requires these requirements. I think that'd be helpful because you know, the preserving trails now or connecting trails is very catches, you know, it's very informal. It's not formal. Sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we don't know. You know, it's really.
What actually happens after it's agreed upon.
Yeah, well, sometimes we, you know, somebody comes in from the snowmobile guys and says, hey, this is an important trail. Oh, we didn't know that.
Mhm.
No one told us. So I think if we had something that was formalized that, identify the trails, and actually put that in the zoning regulations, if you develop these properties, preservation of these trails, okay, connectivity of these trails is something that needs to be addressed in your subdivision plan.
I mean, I think that committee would be interested to hearing that this group is open to
Mhm.
figuring out how to put that into zoning.
I think it'd be good.
What do you think about density bonuses for developers who are willing to put in a public access?
No,
trail?
Jamie's big on that.
Yeah, I know, I heard that.
We
did that thing
we
in
used
Dover.
to have it at one point.
Did we?
And then it was, I don't know the historical knowledge on why it was taken out. Or like why it was voted to take out of the zoning ordinance.
You also had an economic development committee time. Get back to what you were talking
Yeah,
about.
it's a chapter.
I think they got burned out over that 125 acres that never came to fruition. And there was Hard Rock Industries that would do all that.
There's somebody who have come to the select board and talk about an ID.
Oh,
I think
good.
it's only in the ID.
Find them to come over here.
So is there something you want me to pursue right now for our master plan chapters, or kind of just wait how the trails committee kind of shakes out a little bit and maybe organize a little bit more with Conservation Commission and Recreation over the next couple of months is to
You know,
do
my-
like an open space
my-
rec plan, do you think?
My
Or-
recommendation is that down the road, you try to take that work and work into the zoning somehow.
Right,
So that's-
which, yeah,
But the
That-
master plan, we got to
So
work
that
on.
if you develop those properties, there are
That's
requirements.
Yeah.
yeah,
Good.
that's an excellent.
So that'd be for the zoning. Check. This we're keeping.
Mhm.
But to answer your question, yeah, I think the open space and the trails
Or just like look at it
would
at
be a
the
good
next
thing to
chapter.
do,
Okay.
right? Particularly if Stratford Regional has all the information on
We have a lot of
the
data.
current use recreational
Well,
discount,
and
which could be.
We're gonna help, with the
connectivity.
Trails Committee, we're gonna turn to them to help
Yep.
do this master mapping exercise too.
Okay. Because every time I've raised the issue about the current use stuff, people just can't get involved. Well, they're taking the discount to provide recreation. It should be part of the recreation plan. Should be mapped out, should be listed, should be on our trails. Use this trail. Joe Blow is taking discount to open this up to people.
Speaking of current use, to you, Joyce, I think that, you know, Conservation Commission, they acquire land. To me, unless you get a significant discount, you buy that land, they should have the option of selling that land let's say they have a piece, they could sell that and get a contiguous piece or a higher value piece. They don't do that now. And, you know, current use money is gonna go away. That's not an endless supply. There's only so much land that's in current use being converted. So down the road, if you want to acquire this land and you haven't got a current use money coming in, being able to sell a property to acquire that, you know, say this property's got high value as development land, and this does not because it's got connectivity, it's got wetlands and connectivity and all that kind of stuff. Sell that and buy that.
Right. Is there anything in there, are there deed restrictions?
Yeah, you'd probably have to change the deed.
Well, but it's how they buy the property.
Yeah.
You know, unless the guy who's selling it gives you a significant discount, why accept any restrictions on how I use the land down the road? If I'm buying it at market value, I can do whatever I want with it. You know, and they put the restrictions on themselves. The Conservation Commission shoots themselves in the foot, in my mind. You
Well,
know,
the problem is a lot of the money that comes in, like the last one, they kicked in 100,000, but the whole cost was like 700,000 or 800,000. Other people put the money in.
well, but you know, my point is, and
So we don't, it's not like we own it, you know, we
Yeah,
pay for it.
but my point is,
portion
if
of
you
it
if
we
you
did.
acquired at market value, don't accept any restrictions on it.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to sell that and acquire a better piece down the road,
Yep.
you should have that option.
Hopefully they're not paying for market rate for any
I
of
was
this
on the
stuff.
commission, they were.
Well, I remember they had that $800,000 bond from 2005, which they've been all used up.
Yeah, but they're funded by Persian. So-
Yeah, I know, they get that
And-
75%,
and
but then
that's
I'm
not-
talking about the
And
big.
that's not enough supply.
No, I know.
So.
So they
yeah,
they getting 6,000 for each of these lots to the kitty. Well, 6,000, and they get 3/4 of this.
My point is, John, current use land that's being converted is not endless.
Right.
It's gonna come to an end, and having a way to do things once that happens.
Actually,
makes no sense at all.
the number of acres has not changed in the last 10 or 15 years. Some shuffling back. Very little
My
change.
point is just keep the flexibility.
Yeah, I agree.
Don't accept the deed restriction if you pay market value.
But is that something you can put as a question of what the master plan chapter is supposed to answer? That's
No,
example
I'm
of
just
an-
talking for Joyce's benefit. I may try to put that as a rationale or something like that. I think that unless you get, and the guy who's selling you the property, if he's selling the market value, he shouldn't be able to put any restrictions on. We shouldn't put them on ourselves. If we want to use it for conservation, we use it for conservation, but if down the road, there are better options for that land to acquire other land, do that. It's just keeping the flexibility to, you know, restricting yourself makes no sense. You know, keep the flexibility to do what you want to do down the road.
But I guess I'd say other communities must have come across this or thought about this. How's it generally treated? Maybe SRPC could give us some information on that, or SELT, or somebody could.
I was on the Conservation Commission, so I kind of know how they run. And I made the suggestion to them, oh, no, let's be taking it to conservation. We want it to be conservation forever. Ducks Unlimited buys property, the same thing, but they sell and buy land all the time. So they consolidate land, they you know, if they take land and they reserve the right to sell it for a better piece of land down the road. We don't do that. It just seems to me to be, we should keep that flexibility.
It makes total sense.
You know what?
It makes total sense.
The deep state we hear so much about. Okay, do we want to go on to item B? B is in Bravo here, Workforce Housing Informational Meeting. Discussion on possible regulatory audit of the housing in Barrington.
So we brought this up, put it on the agenda for discussion. We kind of already talked a little bit about it, but it sounded like at the last meeting when there was an applicant coming in for the workforce housing, to have someone come in and, I don't know if it's like to present something or how maybe we can better get a handle on how to do it, like you said, like the deed restrictions or that sort of thing. And so I wanted to see if I have a resource out to the state housing folks. But if there's any other suggestions or if there's other ideas you want me to ask to follow up questions for her to come for an informational meeting, I don't know where I'm going with this,
Kind
but
of gives information on how to, all that stuff's in the RSA, right?
right, yeah.
I know.
So how it became, the deed restriction, how the escalator, all that kind of stuff's all in there. So
Okay.
that's in the
I'd be
RSA.
curious when the report they have to give the board every year, what do we do with that?
I wouldn't mind knowing how much we have below, I don't know how you do this, but how much do we have? We got a lot of trailer parks.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of property that sells below 3. So, I don't know, where we are in the town and whether what the goal is, 5%, what a 10%, whatever it is. But it seems
That
to me-
unit, that development with double wides on, they're all named Birds, Partridge, and Nut. There's one for sale now, I think it's at 220,000. So that is, definitely falls with it.
And
There's
Andy's,
44 units. in there.
Andy said things on Barry Road were 50,000, another 150,000, so less than 350.
They are, well, that's what I was thinking, but I didn't want to disparage anybody.
Well,
But more and more expensive houses are ending up on this too, so.
the issue I have is that that looked like a trailer park to me. So.
The one off Hall Road.
The one that's, the
Oh,
one
the
that's.
one being proposed on Green Hill?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, oh, absolutely,
That looked
yeah.
like a trailer park. So
Yeah.
if we get trailer parks all over the place, why are we putting in another trailer park?
Well, they're allowed under the,
Well, because they were
regulations.
doing it for rent, which would be real advantage. So it's
It'd
not
be-
for sales, but it's allowed for rent.
well, only 3 units would be
3 units,
workforce out of the
I'm not gonna
17.
roll over,
Sure.
for 3 units and put in a trailer park. Shouldn't be talking about this.
But I think you're saying, like, how do other towns handle this? How have they been?
Like
Yeah,
I said,
that's what
I
I'd
did
be
review other
interested in.
towns, and they're only offering 25%, density allowance. And they were asking for over 100%. So, that was a big ask.
Because this is all new to me, but
And-
maybe for all of you?
And
If
20,
you-
Yeah, it is.
20% is the minimum. They're offering they're offering 20% the minimum. So, if the numbers work, to me, we should talk about it.
So I got a invitation from the workforce, Greater Seacoast Workforce Housing Group, and they're having a network reception on June 26th, 5 to 6:30. And it might be really useful if somebody from here were able to attend. I can't, I'm in town. And I know, so he'd be more than willing to come talk to us. I know Ryan Pope, who's in charge of it in Dover, would also, does a lot of road shows to various towns. I've talked to him in the past. He said he's always interested in talking.
Yeah, some of those designs in Dover, I don't know what they look like inside, but they look cute from the outside.
Well,
They don't
that's
look
it.
like you're seeing
It doesn't
very
have
nice.
to be ugly, right? How do we make it attractive?
And that sounds like a good idea to have someone from Dover to come over because have experience in how to do the deed restrictions and that sort of thing. Just having them come speak at a at a work session to answer questions
Yeah,
for what
they've
works
done
for
it
their
before.
community. I don't know.
Did that before. Somebody go through.
Hey,
I just had a question to go through that. So we were talking about before about updating regulations for our conservation subdivisions and possibly other, I don't know if possibly other, but maybe other things to look at like the TDRs and that sort of thing. This Invest NH also has additional money, grant funding available for them to do like a regulatory audit of our zoning ordinance. Maybe they can come in and help us, when you were talking about how to firm up our regulations for the cluster developments. I don't know if that's something the board would be interested in or if we just want to work on that ourselves.
another voice is always good.
But
So is their perspective at Invest New Hampshire primarily around workforce or broader than that?
I think maybe primarily, but so we got the housing opportunity grant to do our housing master plan chapter. We just finished that up, closing out the grant for that. I think it was last week they had announced that they had additional funding for there's 4 different things. One's a HOP grant, one's regulatory audit, housing navigator, which Ryan Pope is one, and for Dover, it's like a full-time position, and I can't remember the other one right now, but, so I know that we were talking about opportunities on how to like strengthen our, regulations and zoning for that, and I don't know if this would be like a good opportunity to have, like a consultant come in and do it, not necessarily like, I'm fine with SRPC too, but there's a couple other consultants floating out there that have been, because I'm on PlanLink, which is for planners and stuff for other areas, and how they have helped other communities. Like there's other like zones that you might be wanting to think of to add to it too. So I don't know if the appetite for the board, if that was something you're interested in, because I know we were going to be working on that anyways during, or potentially during our zoning amendment time frame, but
One that I wanted that complicated we walked away from,
Mm.
but was, within the Shoreline Exclusion Act, which is zone which is 200 feet from defined water. I still want to do something where, if you haven't got a septic system on record, date, that they've inspected or whatever, we have cyanobacteria blooms in the time now. And, continues to be cottages turned into, they were built, these places were built 40 years ago, 50 years ago as cottages, and the septic system back up to snuff probably back then, below now. So letting these houses be built or upgraded without missing the septic issue, the septic system, to contribute to this, the lake quality. Is a
That's
mistake.
probably for any lake.
Yeah.
Fortunately, you don't have Title V.
You don't, but
What's Title V?
you pull some stuff from another town where it says
I did, yeah.
if the septic system is not on file with the state,
Right. Did I give that to you?
and it triggers, it's got to be inspected or something
Right.
like that.
Yep.
That, so,
Maybe you have the original copy.
but basically, septic systems, that have been built recently, with the state.
Sure.
So if you can get some record with the state, it's probably not. So it doesn't mean it's
Before
gone, it's not,
1964, there were no regulations,
Yeah.
so
So
who knows what's out
if
there.
it's old or you put it in yourself or whatever, that to me should require a review of the septic system to make sure it performs. So it's kind of complicated. So that, I would like to see that, but it's complicated. So maybe some outside help for that.
And this consultant could do that kind of thing?
Potentially. So like what Ron's asking for, like a review to doing regulatory audit, like I had asked somebody previously, like what it would involve, and it's like, well, what is the board looking for? And we're like, well, at this point, we're still going through our master plan. We're not sure what kind of audit we want to do. Could do like an RFP, request for proposal, for a consultant that has experience in dealing with communities that have this issue, and how
Quality.
yeah, and how do we do that? Not saying that SRPC doesn't do that, but there might be more specialty consultants that could help do that too. Like we have a budget. Yeah, we have a budget to help with different studies or things that need to be updated, like for the regulations. But that's something that the board is interested collectively. I can look into that to see.
These bodies of waters are a big resource for the town.
Mhm.
They generate a lot of tax dollars. I know, I can tell you this, I pay a lot extra money on my property somewhere.
And the state just passed a bill allocating $1 million to study cyanobacteria. So I don't know if there's some way we could.
There might be some like grant opportunities there too, if they're doing something like that. I'm not sure.
Definitely protect our lakes, here in Barrington. They do generate a lot of.
Yeah, and that's one of the
Right,
requirements,
well,
actually, the environmental impacts of our water bodies is one of the requirements that be addressed. So we already have language that says that's supposed to be addressed, we just don't do
How do
a
we
good job of
implement it?
addressing it.
Right.
We don't have a way.
And the select board's considering a warrant article to put us money to help lakes who get hit with cyanobacteria.
also runoff that causes the problem as well.
What?
It's not just septic systems, it's runoff as well.
and
Yeah, but
that's
D-
something
DES
we
regulates
should
that
look at.
already. You know, DRS says you can't put fertilizer within 50 feet of the,
25, I think.
Look at the slopes on some of our lakes. I mean, I'm on Nipple and we're in a bowl. So even if I'm 50 feet away from there, you know, and I've got a garden, it's gonna run down. I mean,
yeah, but there are state regulations, you can't put fertilizer within some distance. So
Right.
that's already there.
right.
And the state.
Compliance is another issue. too.
Compliance is another issue.
Correct.
Yeah, there's a question. Everybody wants their lawn looking good all the way down to the water. I mean, you can put lime. And even within, you know, outside that zone, you're supposed to be like special fertilizer you're supposed to. But so I think the state regulations will cover that. Probably will. This is complicated enough.
Right. But that could be just a public awareness thing, like, it shouldn't be, you know, blowing your leaves in the lake, it should be blowing.
Don't feed the ducks and the geese.
Wash your boats off before you.
That's a milfoil thing, which is,
Yep.
that ship is,
That-
that ship has already sailed.
Yeah, it sailed on swings.
But it does tell you that education has its limitations, right?
Unless they were
Actually out
capable
there
of taking the
checking
trailer
boats
and lifting
and-
the
I mean,
trailer up,
they have
inspecting
a
it. That's
lake
where all
monitor.
this stuff is.
In
Yeah.
Science, we have a lake monitor, a lake host, maybe.
Yeah, they did it last year. They're not doing it this year.
Not doing it this year?
There's no point. There's already milfoil there.
Oh,
So they're taking the money and trying to save and
guess that
hire
makes sense.
divers and
Guess that
things
makes
like
sense.
that.
Does it sound like something that the board would like me to pursue to see if there's a consultant that can help with this? I mean, I could write up something and then have everybody like review it to see.
Seeing nuts.
Okay, I'm gonna go with a yes. Okay, that sounds good.
And we can look at other town regulations that,
Okay.
that's why I said, remember, not the housing. Concord or
Mhm.
Manchester, I guess. The woman I was trying to connect up with, that's that in the wrong place, was a select board of that particular town. They had pretty good regulations. I showed it to John. I think.
Bring it up again.
Well, I know.
There's a, what is it, Clean Lake, Smart Lake organization. They'll come and work with homeowners about their site. And
Oh.
they can do, and it's a free service.
All right. Anything else on our agenda?
There was, well, this is kind of like you brought up, so I'll have you.
Yeah, in retrospect, I'm thinking maybe we shouldn't do that.
Okay.
After our meeting we had on the 12th, I thought, well, if we're really interested in public input, we should have meetings, a public meeting, public hearing for anybody to raise issues not related to applications. But then I'm thinking maybe most people will say, you know, what's going on my street? And who's doing this and that and the other?
Sure, I'm speaking for Bob when I say expanding the scope board and therefore the time involved would be a
I'm
difficult-
talking about 3 minutes for 2 people that show up to say, you know,
There could be more.
could be more. But as I said in my opening remarks, I've changed my mind, so let's not do it. I had a nightmare about it, so. Unless you have a thought. That's it?
Well, no,
business?
I
One
have,
more thing?
I have
Okay.
one thing under other business.
Sure.
I was gonna mention it earlier, but, I received from the town of Nottingham today, so I just wanted to, share this with the board, that we received, a public hearing notice, for the Nottingham Planning Board holding a public hearing on Wednesday, June 26th at 7 p.m. to review a site plan for the Nottingham Business Park at 145 Old Turnpike Road. We got notification of this because we were in the location for a DRI, but I'll just read it here and then.
I actually watched some of that video.
Okay.
on-
It says, application from Scott Frankowitz on behalf of Nottingham Business Park LLC to bring the site up to a condition that will be presentable to the end user. The site plan substantially completed by the former owner. The current owner like to use the original plans created for USA Springs Incorporated. The property is located at 145 Old Turnpike Road in Nottingham, is identified as tax map number 003, lot number 10. It was just notification for the town.
The
We don't
building's
necessarily need
about
action,
1,000
but
feet from the Barrington
Mhm.
property line.
That's why
There's a
we were
lot of
notified.
wetlands there, and
Are
they
we-
can't build there, they can't, it's
Is
all
any of that land in Barrington, or are we just a butters?
just a butters.
just the butters. They came, or they had notified us. I brought my little folder so that way I could, in case there were questions. They notified us in June of 2023, they being Stafford Regional Planning Council, that we were part of.
You said no comments to this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm But I just wanted to bring it up in case you have people from the community wondering, and I wanted to present that to the board since it was from their planning board chair.
Bugging somebody?
She came back, so.
What?
No.
You said there's a building 1,000 feet. What's the building?
It's that old building that was never finished for USA Springs. It's just
Oh,
the
okay,
frame.
okay. All right.
And then beyond the building is a no-build zone. So they can't like put, and their well is back there too. for
So
this
it's an
project.
existing building. Okay.
Yeah.
So they want to develop that.
Yeah.
It is-
Yeah, this guy has put a lot of money into it so far, and then he was the town. He had done it before, paid a lot of fees, and then now they wanted to charge him more fees as if he hadn't. And they did give him a break. They reduced it by 40 or 50%, the town fees, building permit. But he doesn't have a tenant. He's just hoping he'll build a thing and hopefully.
Build it, they will come, huh?
He was hoping, yeah. So. Okay, next item is to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn? Want to stay?
All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I think Donna should second it. She didn't get
I'll
a
second
second tonight.
Roll
I'll second
call.
it.
Shepherd, aye.
Masucci, aye.
Happy LOI.
Tessie, right?
Driscoll, aye. Thank you, everyone, being here.
Vanessa, I didn't